Do you ever notice how life sometimes feels like it's happening behind a pane of glass? You can see it clearly, almost reach it, but no matter what you do, it doesn't quite touch you back. You wake up, you go through the motions, you smile when you're supposed to, nod when you're expected to, but deep down, it's like something is muted. Not broken, not ruined, just muffled. That's the strange part. Nothing is wrong on paper. You've got responsibilities handled, you're surviving, you're even keeping up appearances, but somewhere inside, a quiet question keeps tapping on the walls. Is this it? And it's not dramatic enough to scream. It's subtle. It's in the way you scroll endlessly, hoping something sparks. It's in the way you laugh, but the sound doesn't reach your chest. It's in the way you replay the same thought loops every night before bed, convincing yourself tomorrow will feel different, though it never does. That feeling? That's not failure. That's awareness. That's your inner compass whispering, you're stuck. And here's the truth nobody tells you, being stuck is not a curse. It's a signal, a sign you've outgrown something, a hint that the version of you who fit perfectly into yesterday's life doesn't quite belong here anymore. Most people ignore it. They push it down, blame circumstances, wait for the weekend, wait for the promotion, wait for the new year. They keep refreshing the loading bar of their life, hoping it magically jumps to 100%. But it doesn't, because awareness without action, that's just a loop. Here's where it gets tricky. We're taught to expect change to be loud, a grand announcement, a resolution shouted at midnight, a dramatic haircut, a plane ticket, a brand new identity overnight. And because we expect it to be cinematic, we miss the truth. Real change is quieter, almost boring. It looks like tiny shifts in ordinary moments, the ones nobody else sees. It's in the decision not to text someone back, even though part of you craves their attention. It's in closing the laptop when your body begs for rest, instead of chasing the illusion of productivity. It's in letting a comment slide without defending yourself because your peace is worth more than winning. And these moments, they don't feel like fireworks. They feel like cleaning out a wound. Tender, uncomfortable, necessary. But give it time. Look back months later and suddenly you realize you don't react the way you used to. The old triggers have lost their grip. The people who drained you don't orbit your life anymore. The stories you told yourself about being unworthy, about needing permission, no longer make sense. That's what growth actually feels like. Not a high, not a dopamine rush, but a steady unfolding. And here's the hard truth. The moment you begin to change, your environment will resist. People who were comfortable with your old self will sense the shift, and not all of them will celebrate it. Some will act confused. Some will act offended. They'll say, you've changed, but not like it's praise, more like an accusation. And in that moment, shrinking back will feel tempting, because it's easier to wear the old mask than to risk being misunderstood. But here's the question you have to ask. How long are you willing to trade your freedom just to remain familiar to people who prefer the undated version of you? Growth is loss as much as it is gain. You lose the identity that kept you small. You lose relationships that fed on your lack of boundaries. You lose the habit of betraying yourself for comfort. And it hurts at first, because the familiar, even when it's heavy, always feels safer than the unknown. But eventually you realize the weight wasn't yours to carry. You were holding stories, expectations, and roles that never truly belonged to you. And once you put them down, you don't just feel lighter, you feel clearer, quieter, more solid than you've ever been. That's when life shifts around you. Not instantly, not dramatically, but steadily. You stop reacting to every passing storm. You stop explaining every choice. You stop seeking permission to be who you are. And the world notices. People sense it. They lean in, not because you're louder, but because you're anchored. That calm presence is magnetic. And the irony is, once you no longer need their validation, That's when people begin to respect you more deeply, because they can feel it. You stop performing. You're simply being. Now, let me be clear. This doesn't mean life gets easy. It doesn't mean you'll never feel doubt again. It means you're no longer outsourcing your self-worth to other people's reactions. It means you trust yourself enough to sit in discomfort without running back to the old version of yourself. It means you know, sometimes, healing isn't about adding more, it's about subtracting, dropping the weight, freeing the space. That's the secret most of us miss. You don't need to become more, you just need to release everything you're not. And when you do, you notice the small but profound shifts. You laugh without checking who's watching. You say no without writing an essay of excuses. You let the silence sit without scrambling to fill it. You let people misunderstand you without rushing to correct the narrative. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's peace. And maybe peace doesn't look like fireworks or confetti. Maybe peace is drinking your morning coffee slowly. Maybe it's saying, I don't know, and not feeling shame about it. Maybe it's leaving the party early, deleting the app, walking barefoot in the grass just because it feels real. Maybe peace is simply this: living a life that feels like yours. And here's what they don't tell you. Peace doesn't always announce itself. It doesn't arrive with trumpets or a neon sign. Most of the time, it creeps in quietly. You notice it on a random Tuesday when you realize you're not obsessing over what someone thinks of you. You catch it in the middle of an argument you didn't step into because it simply wasn't worth your energy. You find it in the pause, the space between a thought and a reaction that used to feel impossible to hold. That space, that's freedom. And freedom isn't about having no responsibilities or escaping to some distant island. Freedom is being able to live in your own skin without constantly negotiating your worth with the world. But here's the paradox. Once you taste this kind of peace, you also become aware of how noisy the world really is. You notice how much of what passes for normal is actually just people running on autopilot. You notice the endless chase, better, faster, more, like hamsters sprinting on wheels that go nowhere. And you realize you don't want to run like that anymore. So instead, you slow down. You stop sprinting toward a finish line that doesn't exist. You begin asking better questions like, what actually matters to me? What do I truly want to build? What am I willing to carry? And what can I finally put down? And the answers don't always come fast. Sometimes they don't come at all. But that's okay, because you learn that clarity isn't something you force, it's something you create space for. And in that space, you rediscover something we forget far too often. Being alive isn't a checklist to complete, it's an experience to inhabit. And here's the wildest part. The more you honor your own pace, the more life begins to meet you there. The opportunities that match your energy show up. The people who resonate with your truth stick around. The chaos starts to fade, not because the world got quieter, but because you stopped letting it dictate your rhythm. Now, this doesn't mean the work is done. It never really is. Growth is cyclical. You'll face new layers of discomfort, new doubts, new challenges that ask you to level up again. But instead of panicking, you'll recognize it. You'll know this is just another season of shedding. And each time you shed, you step more fully into yourself. Each time you need less approval, less noise, less distraction. Each time you grow more comfortable with silence, with stillness, with truth. And maybe that's what real power looks like. Not control, not domination, but the unshakable knowing that you don't have to chase what was never meant for you, that you don't have to beg for what aligns naturally, that you don't have to perform for love, for worth, for belonging. Because here's the secret. The more you let go, the more you realize you were never lacking in the first place. You were just buried.
buried under expectations, under conditioning, under stories that weren't yours. And once those layers fall away, what's left isn't a new you, it's the real you, the one that was there all along. And when that version of you shows up, life feels different. Not perfect, not easy, but aligned. And alignment is worth more than any temporary high. Alignment is the quiet confidence of walking into a room and not needing to prove a single thing. Alignment is the deep exhale you take when you realize you no longer owe explanations for existing as yourself. Alignment is the kind of peace you can't fake because it radiates from the inside out. So if you're listening to this right now and you feel like you're stuck, let me tell you, you're not behind. You're not failing. You're in the middle of the shedding. And it feels uncomfortable because it's supposed to. That's how you know it's real. Don't run from it. Don't numb it. Don't rush it. Sit with it. Trust it. Let it refine you. Because one day you'll look back and realize the stuckness you hated was actually the soil where your next self was growing roots. And when those roots hold, when that new self emerges, you won't even recognize the person you used to be. Not because you're ungrateful for them, but because you've outgrown the cage they kept you in. That's growth. That's healing. That's life. So take this with you. You don't need to do more. You don't need to force more. You don't need to prove more. You just need to release what was never yours and trust the unfolding. Because the truth is, you're not stuck. You're transforming. And the discomfort you feel now, that's the sound of your old self breaking away, making room for something greater. And maybe, just maybe, that's the beginning of peace you'll never want to trade back.